And I believe that we are live. Hi, everyone. Hi, Claudia.
Hi, Katie. Thanks for having me.
How are you?
Good. Very excited about being here tonight and answering loads of questions, I hope, which will be helpful to everybody.
Amazing. So hi, everyone. I'm Katie, founder of Flexible Working People. For those of you who don't know me, I run the Flexible Working platform and Facebook group, and we help people to change careers, find jobs. And tonight we're doing something quite different, actually. So I know that we've got a huge community of business owners in the Flexible Working People group. Many of you are freelancers, setting up businesses or already running existing businesses. And I thought that it would be a really good idea to help businesses who follow me and follow the group to give you a bit of value, because we're supposed to spend a lot of time talking to people looking for jobs. So we've decided to run this session. Claudia, just for full disclosure, is actually my accountant. And I've been working with Claudia for the last few years. And she started off just doing sort of my numbers and my books and sort of putting through my self-assessment and looking at my VAT and kind of the traditional things that accountants do to help small businesses. Actually then became really invaluable part of my business by helping me look at forecasting and understanding my numbers better. I didn't really think about using an accountant in that way, but I think that's what Claudia does really well. So she agreed to come and talk to us in the group and to offer some really practical advice for business owners around accounting. And we asked you some questions in advance, so we know that we've got a mix of people here tonight and tuning in. We've got people who are thinking about setting up on their own, just set up on their own. Some people are established small businesses. Some people are already limited companies. So we've got quite a big mix. So we're not going to be able to answer everything for everyone. And for those of you who sent in questions in advance, I have sent them to Claudia. We are going to try and cover as many as we can tonight. But those that are more specific, I think Claudia is going to reach out to you individually and maybe have a chat, and you can set up a consult or a 15-minute call or whatever you do there. But we're not going to get into all of the specifics. So huge thank you to everyone who submitted questions, and for anyone joining tonight live, why don't you give us a thumbs up and just let us know that you are here and listening. And for anyone who is watching on replay, thanks for joining. I know that a lot of people do end up listening on replay because we run these live sessions, but a lot of people can't necessarily join live. So it's always really helpful to have them. So if you are joining on replay, you can still submit questions and comments. Claudia will still see them, so will I. And we can always come back to you after the event. So don't let that stop you from submitting questions, because we can come back to them. So that's my intro over and done. I'm going to hand over to Claudia to say, first of all, to say thank you so much for joining us. Those who don't know you yet, who don't, because you're new to us and new to the group, do you want to just start by telling us a bit more about you, who you are, what you do, a bit of your background, and maybe a bit about the types of businesses that you help?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the introduction. So I'm Claudia. I'm a mum of two. I've been an accountant for over 25 years. I've worked in loads of firms, small, medium and large. Currently run my own practice, which started off as a side hustle. So I understand what that's all about, making the decisions, should I leave, should I not, blah, blah, blah. Most of my clients I've got various clients. They range from one-man bands to small businesses with teams of 5, 10, some even more than that. I love helping my clients really understand their numbers so they can make the decisions they need to grow their business, and informed decisions. That's the most important thing.
Amazing. So that helps you sort of position what Claudia does. So she's an expert in helping small businesses and has like 25 years of experience behind her. So she's a really safe pair of hands, which I love. So Claudia, let's just talk about small businesses, because this is something obviously that people joining here tonight are. So business owners, freelancers, and so on. Like, some really do struggle to manage their finances, and accounting and numbers can be quite scary. I know for me, it's not a strong area for me. So even though I know what I'm doing in my business, actually the numbers and knowing all the rules around finances and accountancy and all of that stuff is a bit mind-boggling. What do you see as some of the really most common mistakes or things that people should really be aware of when setting up their businesses?
I think the most common thing I see is people don't really understand the numbers because they're scared of them and they shy away from them, so they don't try and understand them. common thing I see is people looking at their bank balance and seeing what's in there and thinking, oh, that's enough, I can spend money. They don't really understand their profitability because their bank balance isn't necessarily how much profits they've made. Going on from that, not keeping adequate records really hinders their growth, and not really understanding where they are, and not keeping the records will have a downside of not paying the right amount of tax. So if they're not keeping track of all their spends, then there's a chance they're not including on a tax return and paying too much tax. So it's just really important to understand your numbers and use a package or software or spreadsheets to keep records adequately.
So that is a great answer, and someone has already commented, I agree, that's how I feel. And that is exactly actually how I felt too. I looked at the bank all the time and went, am I earning, am I not earning? I didn't really understand where the money was coming from and what was profitable, what wasn't, what my spend was. And so that was like mind-boggling when we started doing that work together, and suddenly like you were like, well, let's put it in pots and let's understand it and all of that. And I didn't even think that I could use you for that. So that's been really helpful.
Another thing I just thought of, the other thing that's quite common is that not understanding the taxes, how much tax is due, when it's due, and then suddenly there's a tax bill and they've not got the money to pay. So I think that's also, I make sure that my clients really understand what tax is due when. Okay.
So let's start with a small business setting up. From your perspective, what are the key things that people should think about putting in place when they are, because this is we've got lots of people who are joining who are in the process of setting up. What are the things that they should be thinking about at this stage when they're setting out and starting out? What's essential for them to get right from day one?
Well, the first thing is to work out whether they're limited or sole trader. We can talk about it in a minute. But assuming either way, they have to register with HMRC to let them know they're going to be trading. And then the other really important thing is having a separate bank account, because you mustn't mix your personal and your business stuff together. You should keep it all separate. I mean, there's various reasons, but one of them, God, fingers crossed doesn't happen, but you could get an investigation from HMRC and you just send them the business bank and not showing them all your historic personal stuff, which you don't want them to see. And just keeping track of your finances. I keep saying the same thing again and again, using spreadsheets, or even better, using software. Just keep on top of everything so you understand. Those are the basics to start with that I would recommend.
Okay, good advice. So you just touched on sole trader versus limited. And again, personally, that's been something that I've grappled with a lot since setting up. And things keep changing around that, don't they? So different governments, different like rules and regulations, and things are changing. So you've always advised me along the way that things, what's changing and so on. So for people thinking, should I have a limited company or should I set up as a sole trader? Can you just, first of all, maybe explain the difference between the two and the pros and cons of each, and why it might make sense to be one or the other?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing to think about, if you're a sole trader, you are your business. You are one and the same. And if you're a limited company, that's a separate entity. So you've got two entities, yourself and the limited company. That's really important to understand the distinction. The pros of being sole trader, everything's much simpler than having a limited company. There's less paperwork involved. The downside of being a limited company, again, God forbid, doesn't happen, but if something goes wrong, you are at risk. All your assets that you own personally are at risk. So the plus side of that, having a limited company, that everything's separate. So you only got your assets in the limited company at risk. So there are advantages of being limited company. So that the main one is, as I said, the protection. As you grow, there's more things you can do later down the line that will save you tax. Now, initially, maybe 5 years ago, it was always better off to have a limited company for tax purposes. That's no longer the case. For most people, I would say, starting off, it's probably better to be a limited company for tax-wise. It's better to be a sole trader for tax-wise. And as things grow, we can have a look to see whether it's worth moving. I must say, everyone's different, so please seek advice before you go ahead, because everyone's circumstances are different. So one advice would be different advice for different people. So I think the main issue, as I said before, is the protection, the legal protection of being a limited company.
And I think, as you said to me, there used to be more tax benefits to be limited, but not so much anymore. But also, from my point of view, I always talk to you about whether it looks more professional to be a limited company. We've talked about that many times.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. It just looks more professional, looks more established, and people can look you up at Companies House, so you can find a bit more about how long you've been around and got a bit of history there on public display. So it does help people feel a bit more comfortable when taking on new business.
Yeah, and I think that's different when you're a freelancer or a contractor, but when you're growing a business, you have to decide at what point.
Yeah.
And companies often ask for you to fill out forms about your business and ask you for, your company registration and all those sorts of things. So if you're dealing with companies of a large, like global companies, they'll want to look at the way you're set up. They're quite interested in that. Yeah. Whereas, do you want to just talk a bit about that? Because that, for me,
yeah, that's true. I was going to say some of my clients, they've got customers who insist on being limited, so they have to be limited. Sometimes not a choice. So
yes, that's also true.
Yeah, and there's various tax issues of being limited or having a sole trader. There's something called 35. I don't know if everyone's heard of that, where I won't go into that now, it's another topic, but that applies with limited companies. That doesn't apply with sole traders.
Okay, great. So that's like an overview, but I think, as Claudia said, everyone's different and you need to speak to somebody and get advice, Claudia or other, about whether sole trader or limited company is going to be right for you and your business. So, and I'd just caveat that all the advice given here tonight is general. It's not specific to your company. So great for you to get takeaways, but seek advice if you've got anything specific. So the next question that I wanted to cover, again, something close to my heart, was, something that we've discussed in the past together, is VAT. Again, it's like, should I be charging VAT or not? When do you need to register? I feel like it can be really confusing. Are there situations when it's better to be registered or not? Can you just give us some insight around VAT?
Okay, so if you are a business, most business this applies to, I must cover it, not every business. If you're a business that you've invoiced more than £90,000 of turnover in the last 12 months, then it's compulsory to register the VAT. You have to. If you're not at that stage, there are times when it's beneficial to be VAT registered. That would be, for example, if you started out in business and not looking to make a profit, you're not looking to have sales for a while, you can claim the VAT back on some of your costs. So, for example, you spend £1,200 on a computer, that's actually £1,000 plus £200 VAT, and that VAT can be refunded to you if you're VAT registered. The other advantage, if your customers are businesses, they can claim the VAT back themselves. So there's no downside for you to being VAT registered, and you get all the benefit of claiming the VAT back on costs. The other time when it's not a good idea to do that, if you're a business who deals with consumers, they can't claim the VAT back, so that makes you more expensive than your competitors potentially. So just something to think about if you're I can't think of an example now, a dog groomer or photographer or something whose customers are mainly consumers rather than businesses.
Yeah, that's actually I keep bringing me into this because it's resonating because I am a small business owner. But again, that's really interesting because when I put VAT on and I charge my clients, I don't mind, and nor do they, don't bat an eyelid. But then, there are other services that are more geared towards candidates and consumer facing. And then it's not nice. No one wants to have the added VAT. So that's definitely a consideration as a small business, whether you want to add the VAT or, when we talked about it, you told me to suck up the VAT in the price because it couldn't be better. So like tips like that you've given me.
Yeah. And also, like the being a limited company, being VAT looks more professional because they can't tell you're a tiny business. So it just looks more professional out there to have a bit. And sometimes people request a VAT number. So I think there's definitely pros of being VAT registered when the time's right.
So this is just a question that's come up in my head, which is around expensing things. I always get told you should be a limited company because you can just expense it against the business. Is that like a thing, or can you expense anything, whether you're a sole trader or a limited company?
To expense a business expense, it has to be a business expense. So you can't expense things that are personal in nature. But there are a couple of things that you can expense to a limited company that you can't through a sole trader, but there's not that much in it. And when you take into account the extra accountancy fees that are involved with being a limited company, I don't think it's worth going just for that being limited. But there are most things you can expense in both.
Okay, great. So another area which I really want to focus on, and maybe we'll spend a bit of time on, is around accounting tools and like automating, because I think particularly when people set up their businesses, they don't have any tools specifically. I know that I worked off spreadsheets for a really, really long time. I don't know if anyone listening wants to comment and let us know how you operate. So things like sending out invoices, I just used got a Word template and stuck a logo on top or no logo at the beginning. So you kind of just make do at the start with invoicing, and then all the money, all of the transactions that I were doing were just on random spreadsheets, and it was just growing and growing. So, and it was messy. And then I got shown, probably by you, I got introduced to Xero, which is the tool I use. And I was really mind blown actually about how easy it was to use. And once I was shown, I could just sort of get on with it. And so I just wanted you to share, for small business owners who might still be using spreadsheets, when do you think is the right time to move? First question. And then let's talk a little bit about some of the tools that are available that can help small businesses to be a bit more automated.
So I would say from the outset, especially if you're starting out, just go to one. I love Xero. Go to Xero or QuickBooks or one of the others.
What are the others? Tell people what they are. So you've got Xero.
There's quite a few. Xero, QuickBooks, Free Agent, and Sage are the main ones. There's others as well.
Are they all free, Claudia?
They're not free. Free Agent is free, but the others do charge. But you will find when you're starting out, there's normally an offer for the first 6 months. I think at the moment Xero and QuickBooks match each other. 90% discount. You're paying 10%. You're paying about £3 a month for 6 months, which is enough to keep you, hopefully keep you going until things pick up. And I definitely recommend starting as you mean to go on, because you won't have the history there of everything that you've been doing if you're moving over. So as I said, I do love Xero, but as I said, the others are out there as well. It's having the things in the cloud makes things so much easier to collaborate with my client. So if a client got a question, I can just log in and have a look. If everything's there in live data. 10 years ago, before all these apps existed, I'd have to get a spreadsheet and it wouldn't be live, and they'd give me a spreadsheet that was 6 months old, or it was so much harder than it is today. Touch a button, I can advise and be more of a business partner than just an accountant. So I really advise. And then the other advantage of having Xero is there's the information contained on there. You've got the profit and loss account, all the reports to help you manage your business. That's also available. Touch of a button, and it's updated in real time. So from one day to the next, you can see how you're doing, rather than having to rely on sending everything back to the accountant and doing it once a year, and the old way is how they were. I think it's so much better, and that would be my advice at the beginning, to start with Xero or QuickBooks.
So at what point in a business would you say that someone should start investing in a platform like Xero? Is that
from the beginning, because they've got these discounts that make it affordable from the very beginning, like £2 or £3 a month. That's worth the investment, in my opinion.
Do people need training, do you think, to do Xero? Do you think that's...
There's lots of free training online. I offer my clients training as part of the packages that I offer. So it's very intuitive as well. Everyone says how easy it is to follow and set up. And the other advantage of something like Xero is that it links to your bank. So every time you make a transaction, it will get recorded in Xero. So most of it's automated. Obviously, you have to tell it what it's for. It doesn't know exactly if you're spending money in, I don't know, Amazon, for example. It could be anything from Amazon. You have to have a bit of input, but it just makes things so much more easy and less work involved than having to manually update a spreadsheet all the time.
I agree.
So much automating. And you mentioned all these invoices you were using with Word. You can set up invoice templates on Xero, and if you've got someone that pays you the same every month, you can automate that. So every month it sends out automatically. You can link it to various apps. So if you want your customers to pay you by credit card, you can link it to Stripe. So there's so much more you can do than having it on spreadsheets, in my opinion. It's definitely worth the small investment. So
I agree. And actually, moving on to Xero, I'm a bit anti all of these systems, because I feel like they make me more nervous to get involved in the system. But actually, quite quickly got very used to it, and having all of your contacts in one place, like all of your clients in one place as well. And also it alerts you to when invoices are overdue, like, and tracking. So one of the things that's really useful is being able to track invoices and send reminders. And there's just so many useful tools on there that if you're, just saving them all in, in Word documents, it just all gets really messy, and then tracking it all on spreadsheets. So I would agree.
And spreadsheets are so prone to error. I've seen things that add up properly because you haven't done the formula right. It's just so easy to make mistakes, and then you're losing information that's incorrect. And
yeah,
if you forget to save something, you lose it. You overwrite something by mistake. It's just everything's all there in Xero in the cloud, backed up for you. You don't have to worry about update software or anything like that. It's all there, ready for you at a touch of a button, assuming the information on there is correct, obviously.
And the other thing that you introduced me to was Hub Docs. Is that?
That's a sister. Yes, that's a sister app to Xero. It's included in the package. So what that does, it makes you don't have to keep paper receipts anymore. So if you out and about and you're buying a coffee, you can take a photograph with the app of that receipt, and that gets sent into Xero for you to process, and you can just chuck the paper receipt away. It just makes everything so much more compact. You don't have to keep all these paper receipts. Yeah, you don't have all these bits of paper lying around. And I remember years ago, every time I would get a bag full of paper receipts from the clients, and having to go through and unravel them all, and there'd be cigarette butts in there. It just makes things so much easier for everybody.
I agree. Okay, so Hannah said she loves Xero. Phil says Xero is really simple to use, also good for overdue invoices. So is anyone who's watching using anything other than Xero, or can you comment and let us know if you're using so sorry, Kerry's just asked what was the name of the receipts app. Was that Hub Docs?
Hub Docs, HUBDOCS. That links to Xero. It's free in most subscriptions, not all of them. There's others out there. There's Deck, there's Apron, there's another one, Auto Entry. So there's others out there as well, but the fact that Hub Docs is included in the Xero subscription makes it a no-brainer for most of my clients.
Okay. If anyone who is watching has got any questions related to anything that we're talking about, then pop them in the comments and we'll try and get to them, because we've probably got a few minutes where we can. There's lots of people engaging and asking questions. Is there any other tools? So we've talked about Xero, we've talked about Hub Docs. What else could people be thinking about? Or do you think that's enough? But as you grow, are there other things that people could be adding?
There's loads of apps, so it depends on what your business is. If, for example, you're selling on Amazon, there's apps that link Amazon to Xero. If you've got stock and you need to keep track of your stock, there's apps that monitor your stock for you in a better way that Xero can. So there's loads of different things for different companies. One thing I would say is I use for my business Go Cardless. So I've got everyone on direct debit, and there's Stripe as well. So if clients can pay by credit card, it just really helps with cash flow. So I used to spend a lot of money chasing my clients for my invoices, for example. So it just automates all that and saves so much time. And
that's a brilliant point, Claudia, chasing people for invoices, but also making it really easy for people to pay you. So since going
friction from everybody, from you and from your customers, it's just so much easier to pay. And then people think, "Oh, I'll pay later," and then they forget, and then you've got to chase them up. It just saves everyone a lot of time and hassle.
So for those setting up a new business who aren't already set up and established with payments, you've just mentioned Stripe, which I use, which is brilliant. Xero connects to Stripe, which is also brilliant. I know all this sounds quite complicated, but once you're set up, it's so easy, and actually it's life-changing. And you can send payment links, literally just a payment link rather than an invoice as well. So all these things are really good. And at the beginning, you mentioned having separate bank account from personal to business. Someone commented earlier on that, oh dear, they've been taking money into their personal account all since they've started. Why? So just let's talk about that briefly, because that was something that somebody said. Why is it so important to have it separate? And are there any specific business accounts that you would recommend?
So if you're a sole trader, it's not compulsory to have a separate bank account for business, but I would recommend it. as I said before, it just protects you if there's an investigation. You have to show them everything. You just show them that business bank account. But it also helps you keep track of your expenses because everything's in one place. And when you link that to Xero, you'll be linking just with business bank account. If you're linking your personal bank account and everything's mixed into Xero, your Xero is going to be really difficult to maintain because you've got loads of transactions that are relevant. So I really think it just keeps it separate, and it's just good habits to be in. If you're a limited company, you have to have a brand new bank account in the limited company's name, so that's a bit different. If you're a sole trader, as I said, have a separate bank account, but it doesn't have to be a business bank account. If the banks will give you one, or one you're not using, you can link that up to Xero.
Got it. So I'm just looking at the questions that were submitted to see if there's anything that we haven't covered. I'll throw some at you. If they're not questions that you want to answer now, don't, and just say, I'll cover that, I'll take that offline. I
also wanted to bring just to talk about making tax digital before we start on the questions. That's okay?
Sorry, So that was one of the most important things we wanted to talk about. Right, so before we move on, making tax digital coming into force in 2026, and that was a big area Claudia wanted to talk about tonight. So it's something that we're hearing about. What's changing? Can you just tell us about who will be affected and what should people be doing to prepare for making tax digital?
So making tax digital applies to sole traders and landlords from April 26. That if your turnover, so not your profit, if your turnover is £50,000 or more, you will have to submit your tax returns effectively 5 times a year. So it's once a quarter, 4 times a year through software, has to be through software, and one annual return similar to what you do now. So that's very different. So people who are using spreadsheets now, they're going to have to either move to a software, which I won't recommend, or the alternative, you have to get a separate add-on to the spreadsheet to submit the information 4 times a year to HMRC. So that's a big change. But on the plus side, I think it's a good thing because it forces these businesses to switch to Xero or any other software, and they'll be able to take advantage of all the benefits that those using software entails. All the things we talked about before, having the information available, looking at your figures, understand them better. So although it's more aggravation and headache and a little bit more cost, I think it's worth it. And the software houses have announced they're going to launch special subscriptions just to comply with MTD. So they'll be cheaper than the main ones, but they won't have the full functionalities of some of the other variations. But it's definitely worth looking into. I think Xero announced that they're starting theirs from April 25, so quite soon. And it's only maybe £7 a month or something plus that. So it's definitely affordable and it's worth doing. So just to recap, if your turnover, your joint turnover, rental income and self-assessed sole trader income was £50,000 or more during the 23-24 tax year, you'll be caught, and from April 26, you would need to submit basically a summary of your income and expenditure 4 times a year through software, plus you have to do an annual tax return at the end of the year as usual. So
I'm recommending
it's 4 times a year, and even if you've got rental income and sole trader income, you potentially have to file 8 times a year because you have to one submission per income source, so one from the rent and one for the sole trader income. So it's a lot more work than it is now, and I think it's really important everyone gets on top of that and aware of what their responsibility is going to be.
So would you say that as a small business you could do that on your own quite easily, or is that something that you'd need an accountant for?
I'm going to train my clients to do it on their own. If they want my help, obviously I can help them, but I think it's a lot of work for all the accountants to take on like 5 times as many tax returns during the year. So I think it's better for the clients to be on top of their own figures and be more familiar with how they're doing. So I'm going to be offering some training for my clients and helping them make the submissions, and I'll propose them just doing the year-end tax returns. That's what I think.
Making tax digital is already giving me the heebie-jeebies because now I have to do it 8 times. Not very good at doing it anyway. I always miss the deadlines, but never mind. Oh gosh, really? Okay, so that's a really important change for everybody.
And the one thing I would say is that if you're on the cusp of being back registered and you haven't decided that you want to do it, having Making Tax Digital in place, you're doing all the work, so you might as well be back registered. So that's one benefit, maybe, that can save some money because they can claim the input that back by being back registered, because you're doing all the work, doing the other submissions anyway.
Yeah.
Every silver lining, etc.
Silver lining. We like a silver lining. Okay, so Kerry says, are there any business bank accounts that don't have fees?
Business bank accounts. I can't give financial advice. I can just tell you that I use Starling and they don't charge for me to have a bank account with them. I don't know about the others. I think Metal might be free.
There's quite a lot of new ones, new kids on the block.
Yeah, a lot of them, they don't necessarily have a monthly charge. Some of them they charge per transaction. So if you've got multiple transactions, that might rack up. I would say that Free Agent is an alternative zero, and that's linked to Metal, and that's free. The software is free. I'm not 100% sure about the charges on the bank account, but it's worth looking at. Okay.
So we've covered MTD. Is there anything I've missed, Claudia, that you want to cover?
No, that was the main thing. I just would say that
well done, me.
That I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of. And the other thing I was going to say, I do have an MTT guide. So maybe after this call, if you contact me, I can send you a summary of the key points.
Brilliant. So yes, that was our little giveaway for anyone who wants it. Claudia's put together a document that she's happy to share with everyone about Making Tax Digital and what you need to know and who it's for. And it's like a quick, simple, easy to understand guide. So anyone who wants that, tap Claudia up for it. We're going to drop all Claudia's details into the comments. Claudia, if people want to follow you, I'm going to come back to questions, but like talk to you. You said you're offering sort of 15-minute calls. Tell people what they need to do if they do want to.
So I've got a Facebook group called Tax Chaos to Clarity. So please join that. And I'm going to be posting regular updates and people can ask me questions on that. And if you want to discuss me helping with the tax return, there's a link on my website, which Katie will put the information on to book a call. There's also, you can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook. But just to recap, my Facebook group was just launched, so you'll be one of the founder members, is Tax Chaos to Clarity. So please do join me there.
Okay, so we'll type that in the comments as well. What is it? Tax? I'm going to type it here. Tax
Chaos to Clarity.
Chaos. I shouldn't really do doing to what? Clarity.
Clarity.
There we go. Okay, so Tax Chaos to Clarity is a Facebook group. Join that. And
I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. Sorry, LinkedIn and Facebook.
And LinkedIn, and join Claudia's Facebook group and LinkedIn. And if you want the Make Tax Digital, drop a yes, please. A few people have already said yes, please. Drop a yes, please in the comments, so we at least know who you are, or email or whatever, get in touch with Claudia using her credentials.
It's on my Facebook group. Yeah, there's a link to get it on my Facebook group.
Okay, so we are pretty much out of time, but I'm just going to go to the questions briefly to see what we haven't covered. And there was only one that I just wanted to bring up, which was about EU accounts for European clients. So it was, should you have a Euro account for European clients? I sometimes work in these locations too, was one of the questions.
There's no reason why you can't. I've got quite a few clients with Euro bank accounts, so it just makes things easier. You've got a bit of protection against the foreign currency fluctuations. So you just have to find a bank account that has them. I think Revolut does lots of foreign currency. Most of the banks do, but they might have charges. But I've seen clients use Revolut quite successfully, or Wise for foreign currencies. But there's no reason why you can't. If it's something you do regularly, that's definitely an option.
Okay, great. And I think the rest of course have been answered. Otherwise, they're quite specific, having just looked at them. So I think you could probably contact people directly, or if you've got specific questions, just reach out to Claudia directly, and I'm sure she'd be happy to have a chat. And so let's finish on, if there's one piece of advice to small business owners or freelancers, if they're feeling overwhelmed about their finances, what would you say? What would your one piece of advice be?
Make sure you understand your numbers. Get to grips with numbers, be confident with the numbers, just ask questions to your accountant, get support, use software, just really understand your numbers. That's the one key information. Without those numbers, you can't make those business decisions, and you could be making them wrong decisions.
Brilliant. All right. Well, I thought that was a fabulous session. So much advice there, so much really good advice. We covered a lot in the time that we've had. And I hope that people who are listening have found it useful. If you have found it useful, let us know. And if you do want to reach out to Claudia, I am going to drop all her contact details in the comments. And she will be posting some useful and regular content over the next few months into the Facebook group. So stay tuned for that. I hope you all found that useful. Claudia, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
It really was really good, really helpful. All right. So thanks, everybody. See you in the group soon. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.